Game Informer just put out a ton of new details on Fallout 76, and there's plenty of exciting info to dig into. Hey Vault Dwellers, JV here, and today we're discussing how Fallout 76 is still an RPG. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more Fallout 76 videos just like this. Follow my Facebook page for daily live streams and our non-stop Fallout 76 playthrough, which starts right when the beta drops next month. Once again, all of the info discussed in this video is from the Game Informer article, which I've linked in the description below for your reference. Executive editor at Game Informer Andrew Reiner says he sat down with the dev team to find out what 76 is all about. He says if you simply want another solo Fallout experience, Bethesda's making that game. If you desire a Fallout that you can enjoy with your friends, Bethesda has you covered. Finally, if you want an RPG with PvP and instances, that's what Fallout 76 is. It embraces all styles of play, and you can determine how much you want to experience. I'm glad he started with this because there is so much talk, and there always has been since this game was announced, about this not being a Fallout game. This has no story, no NPCs, therefore not Fallout. And I think that's just a gut reaction by people who are resistant to change in their Fallout game. Not saying that's a bad thing, just saying that is a fact. And so they obviously reveal and talk way more about how all of these things are accomplished in the article. Fallout 76 isn't a single player game, but it can be played solo with the caveat that you will eventually run into other players. Anything could happen at any point. They could say hi, raise a gun at you, or completely ignore you. No matter what happens, you have the ability to ignore them. To me, this is yet another confirmation that Fallout 76 is not going to be like Fallout 4 because you will run into other players. You can do stuff on your own. That's what Bethesda has meant all this time. You can play on your own. That's what playing solo is, at least in their eyes. But yeah, you're going to run into people, and they say no matter what happens, you have the ability to ignore them. We know that if they start shooting you and you don't retaliate, they kill you. It'll take forever because of that reduced damage mechanic, but they will turn into a wanted murderer that other people will want to hunt down. And so, coupled with the fact that you can actually block people in your server, you do have the ability to ignore them. So this is absolutely a correct statement from what we know so far. Jumping ahead a bit, Todd talks about, how everyone is a real human that you see. Every human is a human. There are no human NPCs, but they are not the only intelligent beings in the wasteland. You'll run into other characters that are controlled by AI, such as robots. Some of these individuals are enemies you have to deal with, but others are mission givers. A few may even be vendors you can barter with. The robot vendors is something that's been mentioned several times. No Clip documentary, Pete Hines tweets recently. He talked about that. He said that he's run into a few. So we knew those were in the game, but this is just another confirmation of that fact. We are going to have robots, and they aren't going to be so few and far between. That's kind of what I read between the lines with this statement. It seems like, yes, there are going to be quest givers, and they will be robots, and that's what you're going to deal with. If you're not out in the world hunting down holotapes, doing terminals to find quests, this is how you will be given quests, from AI robots. Moving on, a big difference between 76 and other games is you don't engage in conversation with most of the NPCs. You still hear what they have to say, but you don't have dialogue choices to steer the conversation or mission in a different way. Bethesda has likely a number of colorful NPCs that players will grow fond of, but they hope the most interesting beings in the wasteland end up being other players because they want them to be the real storytellers. I think this is something we could have assumed based on the information we had so far, but here it is confirmed. You don't have dialogue choices to kind of guide the conversation, which is something that we've always had in Fallout games. So this is certainly a departure. Bethesda is really going all out with this idea that your communication and your conversations will be over a microphone because this is an online game, and so you're going to have those interactions with other players. So far, Bethesda has also said that your choices really do matter in this game and you impact the game with the decisions that you make. However, we know now that that's not going to be through dialogue choices. We're not going to initiate those choices through dialogue. They're going to be through actions. And if I had to guess, Bethesda also really means under the surface that those decisions and choices you make have to do with other players. Next up, Bethesda has talked at length about 76 being a survival experience, but it is still a game driven by quests. When you emerge from the vault, you receive a transmission from the Overseer, And Todd says she left before everyone. She left secret instructions for you. And that's kind of the jumping on point for what we call the main quest. At the end of it, you'll launch nukes. The nukes are a game system, but they're also part of the main story. We knew that the main quest had to do with the Overseer, but now we know that the Overseer is a female and she left us secret instructions that start off the main quest. And we also now know, I believe we didn't know this before, at the very end of the main story, you do launch the nukes. That's part of the end game, the cyclical thing that you're going to do once you've, finished the main story. We knew that was going to be a thing, but we didn't know that nukes would be at the end. So very interesting there. And again, I really like that reaffirmation that this is still a game driven by quests. This is still an RPG. We're going to be questing constantly. This bit of text is not highlighted because literally all of it is so important. Tons of great information. This Overseer's quest is not something you can blaze through. It's lengthy, multi-part story that takes players across the map. This quest requires the player to be a high level at its conclusion. Even if the player sticks to the quest, they will still receive optional tasks along the way and will end up having a menu filled with missions that can be selected at any time. Todd says, given the nature of the game, you can jump ahead in parts and go back to others. So, the main story is long. Great. We also have to be a high level at its conclusion, which is interesting to me. It's almost like a level requirement, which is not something we've had before. If you progress the main story, then you just keep going. It may be more difficult, but that's how the game has worked in the past. And then I interpret optional tasks as side quests. I mean, surely that's what they mean, not just tasks like, that would show up in your miscellaneous tab, would be like Preston stuff that says go and save the settlement. I sincerely hope they don't mean that. I'm pretty sure they've learned their lesson. And then Todd's statement is a little interesting. You can jump ahead and go back to other parts given the nature of the game. So I don't know if he means in the story or he's saying like you can do certain parts of the main story. Maybe the main story isn't, point A to point B to point C. Maybe you can kind of branch off and do different things in different orders. So we'll have to see what he means by that. Here we have more information on quests. They're not just gained by NPCs. You'll find them in holotapes, notes, terminals, and you may even gain one by simply being in the proximity of a notable location. The project lead, Jeff Gardner, has said that the dev team didn't want players to run past quests. You'll wander near something and will be alerted of a quest, like explore the mine, he says. In the past, we thought that was maybe a little gamey, but we want you to find it. We're being very proactive where this content is. You'll have a lot to do quickly. This idea of going close to a location and getting a quest is certainly unique for Fallout, because before, again, you would have to dig through, certain areas. You go to a location and there's probably something to do with this place. It's probably connected to a quest in some form or fashion. You don't know until you find that terminal or that note. It seems like Bethesda wants to guide players a little more, and it may be, and I know people are not going to want to hear this, but it may be because of the multiplayer nature of this game. You got a lot of other things going on distracting you. Maybe you're not going to be so laser focused on what's in your environment, and Bethesda's kind of helping you along, and that's kind of what I see this mechanic doing. Skipping ahead a bit, Todd is talking about the perk card system. He says there are hundreds of cards, they all rank up, and there are gold versions of each of them. Fallout 4 and Skyrim's skill systems were great, but when we got into the DLC, we said, let's add skills or perks. We looked at them and said, where? The rules are so strict. The cards allow us to be very flexible moving forward. We can release new perks with events we're doing and also have themed perks. This is so cool. Think about maybe a Nuka-Cola themed event that they're going to run for an entire month. Maybe it's bottle and cappy themed like Nuka World in Fallout 4. Maybe we have a bunch of Nuka-Cola related perks that give us really awesome specific boosts for drinking Nuka-Cola. If you drink Quantum, you get +2 intelligence for like 2 hours or something crazy like that. There are some interesting ideas. The ideas are limitless. There's so much with this IP, so much with this lore that they could dig into and give to us on a regular basis. So discovering that there are going to be new perks added to the game that are also maybe tied into events and that are themed is so exciting to me. Also, the fact that there are gold versions of every single perk in the game is awesome. I thought maybe that was a special thing that they just showed off at the QuakeCon panel. No, that is going to be something we can expect for every perk. This is not new information, but I always want to put it in my videos because people are dumb. Cards are not obtained in any way through microtransactions. Again, you can only earn them through leveling. We don't know if they can be traded yet, but you can share one card with your team. That card gives bonuses to everyone. We already knew that. Microtransactions that affect gameplay are not in this game. The final bit of info in the first section of this article is, as you log hours into this RPG, you have the flexibility to change who you are, not by just the cards that you use. You could have a stealth build for infiltration, a PvP build, a team build, a solo build, but the look of your character. You can completely alter your hair, skin, and facial features at any time. One of the first tasks in the game is to take a photo of yourself for an ID badge. The camera becomes an item that you have at all times, allowing for photos to be taken anywhere. We already knew about that last half, but the first half is really interesting. He talks about builds, stealth build, PvP build, team build, solo build. We've heard Bethesda say that they don't want like card decks where you have a preset deck that you swap in and out. But as I've talked about before, it seems like we're going to be swapping cards so constantly that it might interrupt the flow of the game. I personally would love to have builds where we can pre-select what we want, click one or two buttons to swap in between them whenever we want. That would be much more convenient than pulling up a menu and then swapping like 5 cards every single time I want to do something very specific and take advantage of all that these perks are going to give me. This Game Informer article has a lot more info, so stay tuned throughout the week. We're going to be covering it piece by piece. As you guys know, I like to go very in depth with this stuff, and this is a fantastic article that confirms a lot of awesome stuff. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. In the comment section below, tell me, are you satisfied with Bethesda's explanation for how this is still an RPG? How it's still a Fallout game? I know some of you will still not be satisfied by this, but let me know your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, remember to subscribe for more Fallout 76 content, like my last video, where we talk about 76 things that our community wants from Fallout 76. Follow my Facebook page for daily live streams and our non-stop Fallout 76 playthrough, which starts right when the beta drops next month. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.